Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversation. Today we have data analyst Brian Leithead. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, and other Brian. I appreciate your time and having me on today.
Glad to have you on.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you here. To get started, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and what you do now.
Yeah, so just like they say in Wayne's World, I've kind of always had some name tags and hairnets, but nothing really I've called a career until recently. I got into tech within the last 3 years. Um, I worked at a comic book store for 7 years, kind of learned the trade of e-commerce and really just kind of customer service. Then I kind of moved around into the mortgage industry when the pandemic happened as like a loan processor. Um, I work for a big. I mean, here in Michigan, there's the two mortgage giants, Rocket Mortgage and United Wholesale Mortgage. So always plenty of jobs for as far as that's concerned. Then I kind of got the obsession with technology and moved here as a data specialist, and I was kind of dabbled in doing coding. I went to a boot camp here in Detroit as well. Did that for 6 months. Got my first job. Fortunately, got laid off, but now I'm back here into the data analytics world, and it's kind of great to be here and stay here. So a little bit of my
That's
journey kind of
awesome.
summed up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, how long did it take you upon graduating boot camp to find your first job?
So I was actually lucky. I had um, a position lined up with my current company at the time, which was it's called Kroll International. Unfortunately, the website that I was working on wasn't built. It's kind of built on a leaky foundation in the back end. They had to kind of get it redesigned from there because it was in the police industry. So uh, on the e-commerce side of the world, there one kind of variation can have 1,500 different SKUs to it. So that that actually kind of caused that whole website to crash. But um, I got it. I was lucky enough that I got it out right out of boot camp. But I was kind of at a crossroads of do I stay with this company or do I use my skills that I have been building for the last 6 months? So I kind of chose to do that to find another job with
Right.
a consulting business. And at the end of the day, it was a big increase in pay. So who's not going to turn that down? Um, but
Sure.
unfortunately, kind of
Sure.
take looking at it for money first was not the greatest of decisions. But you know it's where we learn, right? It's where we sometimes you just gotta make mistakes to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do programming and I was doing it purely for the money, and I really didn't click with it. And so I ended up, leaving tech.
Yeah. It just never really clicked with me. I felt I was a good programmer coming out of boot camp, but one thing that you'll very quickly learn when trying to find a job, even in the best of conditions, is like if you're not really sound in your fundamentals, um, you're it's not going to be a great thing. And then just moreover, I don't know. I just didn't feel in love with writing code, kind of in
Yeah,
general.
same
And
here. Same here.
it just, yeah, I just didn't. I wasn't committed to that doing that 8 hours a day. So sticking with data analytics, it's equally as fast, but also as challenging, and it's something different every day, and that's what I enjoy about it.
That's
So,
awesome.
how big was the disparity between what you were taught in boot camp and actually doing the work on the job? Did you have to pick up a lot of new stuff, or they pretty much teach you what you need to get up and go?
Yeah, so with boot camp, they kind of teach you the basics, right? So I took like the front end course and the MERN stack, so MongoDB, Express, React, and Node.js aren't all necessarily, specifically in MongoDB, aren't necessarily kind of all transferable to the real world. Um, Not that I'm disparaging the teaching; it's a very easy stack to teach, but I kind of just stuck with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, really honing those kind of base. but yeah, there's still so much that I had to learn, between boot camp and really more on the job because I really went to a back end heavy consulting firm. So there's things that that were transferable, but there's still a lot. They're small
So
fish, big pond.
you were primarily learning front end at the boot camp.
Yeah, and then as I was in the middle of the boot camp, all these heavy layoffs were happening with the big tech companies. So really, here in Michigan specifically, a lot of companies were really only hiring for kind of back end development. So I kind of had to pivot towards that if I wanted to, land a job for, after spending 6 months, 3 days a week on this, really more for studying, if I wanted to get a career. So, I wanted to make it worth it.
Yeah, and that's something similar that happened to me out of boot camp. I went to school for full stack Java. So I learned Java Spring, but when I got out of the boot camp and I'm trying to apply for jobs, none of the Java positions were entry level. Everything was all mid and senior. And so, my mentor at the school said, well, you're going to want to go out and learn React, learn Angular. Those are the positions that are hiring right now for more entry level. So I had to, I felt like I wasted all this time in boot camp because then, anyways, I had to just learn front end JavaScript to get a job. So it was unfortunate.
Yeah, now now it's like you can't even learn, front end or back end. I feel like just to get it, kind of a nibbling of interest from recruiters and companies, it's like you kind of got to be full stack, but what that stack entails is different company to company. So, you know,
Exactly.
so yeah, I feel that really learning the basics of what you learned, maybe it doesn't necessarily matter what you learned, just kind of try and find those basics, and then because you can, especially with like something like TypeScript, you can kind of learn a lot of fundamentals from like something from like C sharp, right? Because it's object oriented programming. Um,
Right.
but but again, everyone's different. They learn different, and uh, staying motivated, especially after boot camp, because you're kind of burnt out, is also very real. So kind of just gets tricky if you're in the job hunt, but also you gotta stay sharp. So and then that's the other thing too to combat is burnout. Um, Spending 6 months or 3 months, however long your boot camp is, of just doing this and trying to stay motivated to make sure that it's all worth it to find that job. So it's a lot of huge mental game.
Not easy. Yeah, not easy for sure.
So once you got on the job, you feel your job gave you support as a junior to be able to learn and get up to speed, or was it kind of a pressure cooker and they just let you sink or swim?
Yeah, with the one that the consulting firm that I was at, was kind of sink or swim. It was one of those places where we had technology in place to make speed up development, right? Like we always would push for CRM programs like Microsoft Dynamics, because that's kind of model driven, so just kind of drop and drag type thing, right? So we could get what clients were looking for, and probably half the time another something would be for building for custom. But at the same time, you know, we had three senior consultants on the job who were doing a lot of different work. We had they kind of had to be good in all things, not necessarily great, but um, it always kind of seemed like we never really had time to kind of mentor me specifically. Um, so I kind of had to do a lot of my own research. Maybe what I kind of came up with or found wasn't always necessarily the solution to the problem that the client had. So there's some editing after, which would cost the company money. So it's kind of just not great for both sides. We kind of just parted ways, but
Tough. Yeah, that's tough. Like my first programming position, it was sink or swim. They brought me in, they sent me over the code base, and they're just like, all right, start building out features. And I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was in React, and I knew React a little bit, but I just really didn't understand the code base. And I was like, well, where's the mentorship? Where's the training? They're like, oh, we can't pull our senior off of his work to train you. Like, So they'd send me like, free code camp, Node.js tutorials and stuff like this. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. So I quit after 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wish I would have done that. I was 8 months and then got let go. I just had other issues with personnel, but it turned out to be for the better for me. But it was just kind of further proof that I don't, as of right now, I'm not like in the coding game, as they say. So I'm
Yeah.
comfortable doing data right now. Excel. We're my current company. We're heavily into Excel and Power Query. So those are pretty good tools to get used to, and I'm comfortable where I'm at. So I wasn't 3 months ago.
That's great.
Uh, I took a huge mental spiral and just it got out of control. But I got all of it sorted now. It was all kind of worth it. I got a career, great pay, and it's been a journey this year for sure for me.
But you've kind of fallen into the spot where you feel like you can gel well.
Exactly, and I got my current job from Facebook of all places. And they say that come to LinkedIn, network, 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 and you'll land a job in X amount of months. But I was doing that for 3.5 months, and then I'm also posting regularly on Facebook. And my friend who I played, Magic the Gathering, right, a nerdy kind of card game of all places. She's like, "Hey, apply to
Sure.
for this. We're, we're kind of looking for some new data analysts." And yeah, I got the interview, had 2 interviews processed, screening with HR, and then I interviewed with the VP of the company, a very prominent family here in Michigan. And I mean, I got the job within a week. So if
Oh,
somehow
wow.
yeah, if all companies could somehow get it down to that process, be great. I know it's sometimes not that easy, but um, yeah, I can't say nothing but good things about this company and the people who I work with now.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of places are like the place that I ended up at. It's sink or swim. You hear the saying, "Oh, you got to hit the ground running," and there's just no mentorship. There's no time for training, and it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of companies that are like that.
Yeah, they understood, this current company kind of understood that I hadn't done data in almost a year and a half. So I kind of I have like a 90-day probation period, but it's kind of like 30 days. So I'm like in day 45 now. So I'm the second month of kind of like this plan of I'm taking on more things, still kind of ramping up to all this reporting and training. So it's been a good transition.
That's great.
So when you applied for the position, you didn't have any sort of data analyst backgrounds. So how were you able to sell yourself as a fit for that position?
Kind of database work. And like I said, I had a pretty heavy experience with Excel. And just growing up with it, doing it a lot because I was in the mortgage industry, I'd kind of just take it upon myself to, you know, build out like spreadsheets of like where are we at in this process, just so I would be able to keep track. Um, kind of in one source rather than having to go to 3 different screens to kind of figure out all that information out. So, um, but yeah, I would say having a heavy Excel work background really did that. Also having a referral within the company. And it turns out that after I found out I got hired, I actually knew 3 other people of this company. So
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, so I, if I were to say if it were one skill that maybe stood out that wasn't a referral, it was my Excel background. Um, and really just kind of following the ABC method of interviewing, right? You had a problem A, this is what you did B, and then C, this is the solution that I came out with. So if it's, I saved this company $10,000, or increased efficiency by 25%, right? It's always a numbers game for me, or at
Right.
least in my process for interviews and for my resume. So um, I think I always have interviewed well. It's just whether my experience from a resume standpoint, kind of caught the eye of caught the attention of like the recruiter or the interviewer.
Right. And how did you get into Excel?
So I kind of always had an Excel background from just when I was in school, but from a career standpoint, like I said, I would kind of keep track of it. My loans when I was working at Rocket Mortgage, they had a Power BI, what do you call it, display for us as loans. So
Right.
I just kind of got used to that, and then I'd pull my loans that I would have for the week, Excel sheet, and I keep track of them where they kind of were because there's different milestones. Like loan is in process, loan is pre-closing, loan is closing, kind of that kind of thing. So I know where
Well, you
it's
got to
easy.
track the progress, basically.
Correct, yeah. So learned how to the certain keystrokes for that, and then I had a data entry position after I got laid off from the mortgage industry. Um, that also required Excel prior to my first coding job. So um, yeah, I had a lot of maybe career experience with Excel.
So you were pretty well versed when you came into this job with Excel.
Yeah, correct. Now, on the actual like analytics side, like pulling reports, doing data visualization, that's kind of where I'm lacking. That's where I'm spend most of my time doing training on. Because it's like with data analytics, you're always asking a question. The most difficult part is what question do you need to ask, and that's what I'm kind of learning now. Is you know,
Interesting.
like what do we do with this data? Like because with tools like Google Analytics, um, you can do many different things with your website. Track lots of different information. So the question is going to be, what are we going to do with this data? How do we how do we analyze it? And what it ultimately would be the answer to improve our process. So that's what
Right.
that's what I'm currently learning now.
Awesome.
Interesting. So, like on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the common tasks that you do as a data analyst?
So usually when I'll get in, I'll run a report on because we use a tool called Channel Advisor. I think it's actually called Rhythm now. Um, it's how kind of our back end, right? So a lot of big e-commerce companies or just e-commerce companies in general use it because you can post your inventory there, and then it'll kind of funnel your product depending on like which platform. So we do a lot of business on Amazon, FBA. It's called Fulfilled by Amazon. We also do eBay and Walmart Marketplace. So depending on what the item is that we're selling and the fees, pricing will change on that. So if we're getting variance on pricing from Amazon, maybe we'll keep it on there and like remove it off of eBay. So that's kind of like the first part of my morning. Otherwise, when we get new like vendors or updated product that we have to list, I'll go through and kind of what they call clean it, make sure it's presentable and the for upload. That's probably I would say currently right now maybe 50 or 60% of my day. Then I got a couple meetings each week, usually about an hour each, and then run a couple of Google Analytics reports. So right now I'm kind of still in that junior level, and I'm also trying to build a web scraping tool for us that if we need to scrape like a vendor's website for all of this information, just kind of speed up that process because cleaning for us takes like making sure everything's like presentable to the customer online and making sure
Sure.
that we have clean data, right? Because we don't want to
Right.
have a
Right.
I work for a plumbing company, so we do a lot of different uh, what they call commodities plumbing. So different like valve sizes. We have to make sure that that's all correct, that the description matches the title, kind of things like that. So
Right. Okay.
yeah, so if I can kind of just get that all into one spreadsheet from the company rather than kind of going, individual Google search or searching it from the website, then that will clean up a lot of our time spent and kind of get more into the
Makes
analysis part of things.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what did you like about data analysis that you really didn't find fulfillment in programming?
Kind of like the diversity of my day. Um, it's not the same thing every day. Now, mind you, with coding, or you're gonna get a ticket or uh, maybe small project that's different. But I don't know. It's like maybe one part's working on my web scraper, or and another is like working on pricing for a quote for our sales folks. Like breaking up individual items of like, yeah, we might lose money on this one, but we're going to make it up kind of on this item type deal. Then I'll be working in Excel or Power Query, kind of pulling some data, making up reports. So it's never, for me, what kind of drew me to data was it's never the same thing, I felt. Whereas writing code, again, this is just a high level kind of my experience, was just you might have your stand up at the beginning of the day, but then it's just get in, write code, or drop and drag some things, and that was it for 8 or 9 hours a day. And for me, that
Yeah.
wasn't fulfilling.
Same here. Yeah, I didn't expect like the level of intricacy with coding and like how technical it would actually be, when on the actual job. So like, I thought I had prepared myself well with the boot camp and learning React and Angular, and I was sorely mistaken.
Yeah, it's I knew that coding was always going to be challenging. Like there's nothing short of that. It's just maybe I wasn't ready for the level of actual challenge that it was. Now, there's problem solving and all of that involved for sure, but it was the monotony of kind of like writing code, testing to see if it worked. Okay, Googling or Stack Overflow the answer, and then you know if none of that worked, then ask a senior uh, if you really needed help. And I don't know. To me, it just wasn't fulfilling. Um, and with data analytics,
Yeah,
I'm not
same
necessarily.
here. Same here.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah, it was just. I guess kind of get to the back of the question. It was just breaking up my day with different tasks was really why I enjoyed that. And there are a lot of similarities between data and coding. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know, kind of feel more comfortable in data side of things.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome that you realized that and you were able to pivot.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for my time in software, and I'm trying to get my own kind of small consulting business off the ground for WordPress, off the ground here. But uh, yeah, I don't know. At least in the interim, I mean, I don't want to leave this company I'm currently working for any reason. But so should anything happen, I don't know that I would want to go back into software full time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, before we get into WordPress, if someone's looking to transition from software because they don't like it and maybe get into something like data analytics, what do you recommend they do to be able to get into that field?
I would heavily brush up on your SQL. We don't use that a lot at my job because we have a different type of database. For It's kind of more specific to the plumbing like showroom industry, but definitely get good at a spreadsheet tool, whether it's Google Sheets or Excel, um, or and SQL for sure. Then learn some sort of visualization tool, whether it's Power BI or Tableau. But yeah, I mean, things as far as skills are concerned that are transferable. I mean, there's a lot. Attention to detail is obviously going to be one of them, um, and problem solving for sure. Because one, you're going to be going from looking at large code blocks or code bases of kind of picking out the line of this one doesn't work. Let's pluck that out and see what fixes. Whereas this is like
Right.
this this pricing is all wrong, or this the what we're doing with our purchasing doesn't make any sense. So um, yeah, I would definitely stick to if the actual tools, learning a sheet tool like Excel or Google Sheets, and then a database language for sure. I know Python. A lot of my coworkers don't, so that's an advantage too. There's a lot of automation tools that you can use with Python that will really help your job and kind of speed that up. That's actually what I'm
Yeah.
building the web scraping tool in. So there's a lot of transferable skills from data to, I'm sorry, from coding to data. So um, I don't think it's as hard as a transition. It's really just going to be more of, are you going to be in love with looking at spreadsheets all day? It's really, that's, it's probably going to be the majority of your day is looking at cells and, not getting overwhelmed by it. So
Right.
Yeah, interesting. So what made you want to get into WordPress development and launch a side business?
Um, so my wife actually has her own. She owns a restaurant with her family. But just like with any restaurant, kind of struggling right now. Just overall revenue is down, so she started her own baking side business. And I built the website for it in WordPress because she wanted something that she'd be able to edit herself if she needed to, but she just wanted me to build it kind of off the ground. Um, so it was kind of like a way for me to kind of still be active doing software in a way, also to make extra money. Why WordPress specifically? It's generally an easy tool and kind of speeds up, in my opinion, a process. Or I'm sorry, speeds up the process for development as well as for easy if I were doing a blog or some sort of content management for a small business. So it's easy for both sides, in my opinion. So I
Right.
chose
And you can just like pick out a theme that's relevant to the company and just use that WordPress theme.
exactly. There's already a lot of support for WordPress, and if a company is obsessed with SEO for their business, it's got a lot of tools for that. So it's highly customizable. I know a lot of I don't want to say real developers because I don't think that's fair, but people who have built custom applications, maybe not like it, but for somebody who's still a relatively beginner in coding like myself, and um, but has also kind of seen the actual business side of things, I think uh, it's a great tool to use. And again, like I said, it's you can choose a theme and you can develop something in a couple of weeks or a couple of days, whatever the task is. So
Yeah, it's kind of like Wix. Like you can just like type in some of your details and they'll have their AI front end just like work something up for you.
yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of like the editors like Elementor and Gutenberg, I believe, have their own AI add-ons that you can pay for yearly or monthly, but
Yeah,
not.
Elementor, that's a really great one for WordPress.
Yeah, I love that's actually the one that I use, day to day for my business. It just makes everything easy, um, and edible. And even if the company doesn't want to use me going forward for further additional advancements, that's fine. Whoever picks it up will be able
Right.
to pick it up, but obviously you would want
Absolutely.
the repeat business. So.
Yeah.
So like, how do you go about procuring clients with WordPress development?
So, I've actually followed what I believe he was on a guest on here, Devontae Moore, and then William Ray. So those are kind of the two big freelancers who I follow in LinkedIn. I've been kind of following their tips and tricks, but I'm also pretty lucky in that I live in kind of a small town north of Detroit. It's called Berkeley, but there's a lot of small businesses here that need a website, or if they don't realize that they need a website, that's kind of where I come in. Sometimes I've built connections just by being heavily involved in my community. I've built, I think in the last 4 months, I built 14 sites for very small businesses or like volunteer/charity groups. So I haven't done much cold calling. I haven't needed to do that. Um, but when it comes to that point, I have the sales experience from working in mortgages and retail. I don't necessarily have a call script, but um, I have the background to kind of sell myself and sell my company, you know, if
Right.
needed to, like if it were a cold calling solution. So right now, most of my leads that have come have actually just been posting in local Facebook resident groups, just getting services that way. And the early on, I was not charging any money because I just wanted to build a portfolio. Now that I've kind of done that,
Sure. Sure.
we'll kind of go uh, pricing kind of on a case to case basis. But um, for me, it was mostly like Facebook and uh, like Facebook like resident groups was my main source of leads.
So you've heavily been focused on networking, you would say.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you look at really any marketing, the best way to do it is not spending just a bunch of money on Google ads or Facebook ads. It's actually just word of mouth reviews, right? So, um,
Right.
I'll comment like, yeah, I used Brian for the service for X, Y, and Z, and I loved it, and great process kind of thing. So, just kind of building that momentum. I mean, I live in this community is 22,000 people, and there's I think over 200 businesses. In the worst cases,
Okay.
one they say no, but B, it's I have the reputation locally, which is what people really want at the end of the day. Um, is to deal with somebody, at least in my experience, in person, or somebody who is local, and understands their problem. So, um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but yeah, it's and every site that I've worked on is different. My process of editing everything is the same, but I've kind of tried to solve a different problem with each site. So.
Oh, absolutely. To get into networking, like, do you find it's better to network in person or online? And how do you network efficiently and effectively?
So when it comes to like LinkedIn or um, I guess I have two different processes. One for business, one for LinkedIn. I'm sorry, LinkedIn and for my business. So um, I find it more efficient to network in person for my business, because, like I said, it's at least with these small businesses, they want to be able to kind of walk down the street and kind of meet in person, whether it's going to a restaurant or just walking into their business, and kind of me pointing and building that relationship in person. Whereas with LinkedIn, my networking strategy has kind of just been in bulk. um, I'm trying to stay off a lot of social media apps, and kind of spending a lot of time on that. But I'll spend maybe an hour or so every couple of days on LinkedIn, just making one generic post, and then kind of scrolling through and liking and commenting on posts from people who I'm not connected with.
Right.
Because I don't necessarily believe in getting 11,000 followers or 12,000 followers in a short amount of time. I do want a large amount of connections, like, but I want them to be meaningful, like with, not,
Exactly. That's huge. Yeah,
yeah,
that's huge.
like make it, not to be like sound like a weirdo, but make it like a friendship, right? Like I'd rather have three close friends than 10 people who are acquaintances, more or less, right? So, um, less is more in some ways, but I'm
Yeah,
still
you really
slowly.
want to focus on the quality.
Exactly, and I think that's kind of uh, really what I'm looking for, just in my personal life and as my career. So they're kind of uh, overlapping in a sense, but I guess kind of getting back to the business part. Yeah, I would say I would value in-person connections more than kind of posting online, or doing because I'm in Michigan. I don't necessarily want to do business with somebody, and at least not right now, with somebody in like California, let's say, or
Right.
so kind of build my business organically locally, and then kind of sprawl out.
That sounds like a really good strategy.
Mm.
Yeah, knock on wood, it's been working so far, but uh, you know,
Oh, that's great.
You got a benefit of that of like building locally and having trust is a lot harder for somebody to come in and take your business versus like everything online. You're competing against who knows how many people.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have websites like Fiverr and Upwork, so you're already kind of setting yourself up for a lot harder of an upstream than what if you kind of build locally. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to have a very good local connection because like my wife has a restaurant and her in-laws have been part of these uh, groups for 20 plus years. So you know, and then I'm obviously went to high school here too, so it's I've had a lot of connections here, so there's no shortage of those right now.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So you gotta kind of close this out, man. You're also a man of faith. So can you tell us a little bit about how your faith in Jesus, what role does that play in your life?
Well, for a long time I kind of turned my back against faith, because I thought that he there wasn't really anything external driving me, but I've come back to Jesus within the last 10 years. um, and he's played a big part in my life. He brought me my wife and son, who I cherish and love just as equally or as our Lord and Savior. But I don't really openly talk about it necessarily on LinkedIn. I probably should do that more. But that's one thing I'm working on. Um, but yeah, I mean, all things through Jesus are possible. So I, to kind of get in personally, I had a drinking problem 3 months ago. I'm 3.5 months sober now. But without the support of Jesus and my wife, I don't know if I would have been able to overcome that. So, um,
Absolutely. That's tough.
yeah, it's kind of my own. It's definitely my own doing of just trying to deal with problems with liquid encouragement rather than just the healthy way. But and I volunteer at my church all the time, building a great foundation there. So,
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah, I without him, I don't know if I could have turned my life around, as they say. So, uh, I
So your faith has played a large role in everything that you've done.
correct, yeah, whether I realized it at the time or not. Um, I wanted to make a better living for myself, so that's why I chose to do a boot camp because I needed, to kind of do and accomplish in a short way. I don't know if I would have without praying every day. I don't know if I would have been able to get through that because there was times where I thought I was going to quit 3 or 4 times over, but through a good support
Nice.
system, and praying every day and just believing, it got me through it. So, and
That's
a
awesome.
lot of interest, taking a lot of praying as far as mental health. Yeah, it turned it around very quickly. So will always welcome people and have a conversation about Jesus.
Absolutely. So yeah, like I know technologists, a lot of times we can be isolated, loners. But I do find like there's an importance in community. So do you feel like, having a church community, has it really helped you out and helped you feel like, you belong somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm pretty close with my pastor and really everyone who's in our church, and that's really kind of what I've always wanted. And as far as a career and just as a person, is just like that small community where I feel welcome and kind of have like, you know, open, honest communication and not maybe necessarily feel judged. And I kind of have that with the church, and
That's huge.
so, and now I have that with my career finally. You know, so yeah, I don't know if I would have been able to accomplish all the things that I've accomplished in a short amount of time without the backing of my community and Jesus.
It sounds like doors have been opened for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I just needed to put my faith in him and, kind of let go in a way.
That's awesome.
So when you say let go, does that kind of mean like let go of your understanding of things and just rely on faith and that God's gonna make everything work out?
That's a better way than I could have ever put it, but yeah, yeah, for sure. Still, even to this day, I'm still a bit of a control. I think I can control my own every little situation. But at the end of the day, I had to put my faith in and just kind of let go. And I feel like a few days later, I got a new job. So, I just had to set this on my own ego and
Amazing.
let Jesus take the wheel, as they say.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I think that's all the questions I had. Did you have any questions, Brian?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, man, it was definitely great having you on, man. Did you want to leave any closing thoughts to our audience?
Just if you're in a bind mentally, physically, just know that there's always going to be help there for you. And if you feel like you need help, I'm here. Just message away on LinkedIn. Never feel too shy to reach out. I'm always here to help in any way too.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.